and now I would like to share our impressions of the school, make some conclusions, make some plans for the future. I would like to ask a few questions to the participants. There were 5 streams this year. We had 5 stream managers or curators. And Richard Olsen was a curator of one stream, and I would like to ask him. Я хотела бы задать вопрос, какие ваши впечатления про школу? Возможно, вы поделитесь.
You got some novel idea from the outside, and also what would be the topic would you propose for the school 2030? The school which will be in 10 years. What will be the major topic of that school? What do you think?
Okay, so you have to remind me of all 3 questions so that I don't forget. So, my first takeaway is the following, that we're literally on an exponential curve of adoption of the technology and the teams which are being. So, not only is the volatility of cryptos on basically 80%, but actually the adoption which is happening because there are exciting teams which work on projects is much faster. So we're in an exceptionally steep exponential curve. So that's my first takeaway. And what I sense is a true buzz. You know, there's this boom, 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 like this, but there is this true vibe. So this is my first takeaway. The second is something which for me wasn't clear. That is, yesterday it was talked about that the US doesn't only control its borders, but also controls the dollar. And if you transact with the dollar, you are in trouble. But did you realize that in future we have today Tether? Tether is a dollar instrument, but it's tokenized. And now the US government has no control over Tether. So tokenization, that is the stable coins of the dollar, they directly undermine the government power. So that's my second takeaway. I didn't realize that. So it's quite radical. So that means that if central banks try to protect the scope of their currency, actually that's much more difficult. The sheer fact that you can tokenize any asset, including any a dollar or a currency, means that actually the political landscape is, you know, very different. I didn't think about that. The third is that it's really not only about financial markets, but the whole insurance industry. The relevance of creating new innovative products in the financial space, which include insurance, but also in the real economy, that this will be a much bigger dimension and will come faster than I would have first expected. So these are my first 3 takeaways. And then you ask about what will be the winter school, Perm winter school in 2030.
Yes.
So I have a very clear view on that. I mean, we have a serious problem. How can we get people to do what really makes sense? How can we get people to create a sustainable life? And what was debated yesterday, to balance personal interest against public interest. The only solution to that, which I see, is to build what I mentioned yesterday, a Wikipedia for big data. That is a global forecasting service which includes a lot of forecasting models for coronavirus, kind of all the environmental data, all financial markets, all companies, all technological trends. And we need a real-time weather map. So what I hope that you'll schedule in 2030 is a Perm winter school discussing this global weather forecasting service.
So let's make the data open and let's make the model of the world. Yes. Thanks, Richard. Thank you. Вторым стримом, который курировал Константин Korischenko, был стрим по блокчейну и крипто.
Was blockchain and crypto asset stream. Konstantin, what are your takeaways and topics for 2030? You know, when we talk about complicated and versatile areas and subjects that are not very clear, even to the speaker himself, I mean, he understands what he says, but he's not sure what's going to happen, and he's not able to make predictions. So my idea is that there is one key thing that we should remember, and we should build on both sides of the barricades. So there are people who know what to do, and there are people who know how to do it. And the problem is, my main conclusion from the discussions I participated in is that technologies are not solved to resolve technological problems. They can do it, actually, but we don't have problems in technologies. And the main problems of business are connected with people, their motivation, their interests, and people who offer technological solutions, even the most advanced and the most up-to-date. They have to understand that in this or that way they are trying to solve psychological challenges. So we should not think about problems of insufficient information storage or exchange. They do exist, but the main problem is always in a completely different area. So that would be my conclusion for the first question. Be a little bit closer to people, understand them, know them better. So you technology guys should go down to earth a little bit and talk to the people who work in business, talk to them about their real life problems, and probably you will understand how your technology can be used for their benefit. Talking about 2030, based on what we have discussed, I think we will have two main streams for discussion. The first one will be a global stream. I think it's an eternal topic for discussion, and it goes back to the Bible and to Egyptians. The question is how the world should be organized, what is democracy, what is fairness. It's an eternal topic, and blockchain, like Egyptian characters or the first printed books, are just tools that used to help people before and help today. So for example, if we had blockchain 2000 years ago, probably we wouldn't have any problems interpreting the Bible today. So in this or that way, in 10 years, there will be at least one serious crisis. It's obvious for me, at least. And what will be the consequences and the aftermath of this crisis? Will it be a new... In a previous presentation, there was information that a new crisis led to changes in policy and technology, so I think we will discuss that. And also, I think we will discuss our personal areas of interest. I really liked the speech about the future of the theater, so theater. And I think in 10 years, the majority of things will not belong to us in the new economic system. So we will be living even more in the internet, maybe like 8 hours every day, without wanting that. So this thing will probably be implanted into our bodies, at least in the form of microchips. And we will discuss how much we will stay human in this case, and how we don't turn into robots, and where is the border between the people and the robots. And the question is, if we are going to see robots in the next, in 2030 Perm Winter School, I don't see any problem if we see a chatbot talking about some investment solutions in 2030. I think it's quite possible. And moreover, there are more and more opinions that a certain market is behaving in this way. And then it says robots are going crazy. So the psychology of robots is going to be another subject for discussion.
What Konstantin said is the question of governance and human activity. And this was the third stream of our school, and we listened to Stepan Gershuni, who has already left for the airport, and also Vladimir Luganskiy from Radical Market Movement. The main conclusion that I made after listening to all the speakers today is that now we are in transition from a system when we have proof of work and proof of state. The proof of that machine has done some work. We are coming over to proof of human, to prove that it was a human who made a certain decision. And people vote. And this is, I think, the sphere that will affect us the most. As for the forecast for 2030, I'm rather skeptical about such forecasts, but I suggest that we look at what will remain unchanged. And I don't believe that the world is becoming more and more globalized. And at the time, cryptocurrencies solve the problem of cross-border payments, but it's not clear what will happen to it. The same thing is about digital identity. There's more and more data every day, and this data leaks. And the question is, this sphere is developing rapidly now, and maybe within 10 years' time, we will have something quite different in this sphere, and whether it will take place or not, it depends on us in many ways. And the topic of the crisis is leitmotif for all our winter schools. In 2011, we discussed the fresh crisis that happened before, and whether we can postpone the next crisis or make it a little milder. I want to listen to Alexey Lobanov. Dear friends and colleagues, such an intensive flow of information we have received over these 2 years, it makes it difficult to structure all these impressions. But I already have some ideas. And I caught myself thinking that from the very beginning, we've had this topic of cryptocurrencies that may in future will be issued by central banks. And today, this day ended by the presentation devoted to the new currency system based on commodities, also by the central bank. And I felt as if I was at work. It's started in the central bank and it's finishing in the central bank, although it's a weekend, but I just couldn't get away from it. Their political and macroeconomic topics are often discussed at this winter school, and this political background dominated over technical discussions here, be it in the sphere of the design of the systems based on blockchain, or the methods of risk assessment. In my view, for me, a new thing is a new impression comes from Giuseppe Bellocchi's talk when he said when a correspondent bank relationship comes from. A couple of years ago, I was surprised to see this topic among the agenda topics of Basel Committee. Why people are paying so much attention to this concept? Because now we live in the epoch that was designed at the time of Medici and Florence and the Catholic Church, and so their ideas are still there with us. And I have also an impression that what we were talking about several years ago, expecting the happy future with blockchain, this happy future is not here yet, and it hasn't yet resolved the problem of the speed of payments. This old problem has not been conquered yet, and the problem of micropayments in different currencies between technical systems that have no people but have lots of nodes that have to pay for each other's services. Still, these two topics will be very relevant, and we cannot say that the new technology has won. We can only say it when these two problems have been solved. What I want to wish for the future, if we are now making some predictions for the future, I want to make now the forecast. I remember the school of 2015 when we were trying to forecast the 10-year period. 5 years have already passed, and when I was looking at presentations from that school, I realized that not everything that we said then was neither implemented nor is still there, nor is mentioned at all. And fintech was not mentioned at all, and it so happened that nothing is said about RegTech using RegTech, I mean regulation tech. Although last year the Bank of Russia made a roadmap on RegTech, which is a revolutionary step. And this is something that I couldn't have foreseen 5 years ago. In these terms, the creation of system that would enable the participants to regulate this sphere, like machine-readable regulation and self-implementing regulation that takes the minimal participation of the market participants. Maybe in 10 years' time, this situation will change. It will be very interesting to look at it. And another forecast for 2030, I hope that this winter school will still be there, and hopefully the participants will be the same, and some new ones too. And I hope that we will have a risk party, and I invite everybody to come here in 10 years' time and to draw some conclusions. Thank you for this wonderful event. It was really interesting. And maybe one more desire that I have. Maybe that now that the number of presentations is so big that maybe we could have 3-day school like we used to have. A new topic of this year. We always used to be very technical, modeling, counting, and this year, today, this time we looked at the human, because the human has to be in the center of all those things. We don't need those models for themselves, but we need them to make people happier and to continue their existence. I want to ask Lena to draw the conclusions on this stream and make also some predictions. I am a linguist, actually, by my background. If you think that I had something to do about IT, is not true. I only wrote about it. And when we started the first winter school in 2011, I could never have thought that I would in some way participate in creating the program for this school, and there would be some topics in which I would be a specialist. Even last year, it didn't occur to me yet. When we were walking along the Kama River with Sergey, we were saying that when we have the 10th winter school, we should have some very general topic that would embrace everything that we have done and that would give some space for the future. We came up with the topic of money and people. And even in the process of when we had put all those parts together, we still hadn't come up with that insight, that takeaway that Konstantin has already said. Whatever we talk about, be it risks or money or economy, we are always speaking about people. And we are not speaking about people, we are losing something and missing something. Because all problems and all aims are about people and their relationships. One more takeaway for me is that we all have gadgets, we all are digitalized, and we are all in the internet. But fortunately or unfortunately, the paper agenda is something that everybody wants to have. Nobody wants to go online to see the program. So my forecast for the next year is we are going to have a paper program. Or maybe we will have some more efficient ways of getting you to download the application. Maybe we are going to pay you with tokens for this. Maybe we can have some winter school tokens. As for the predictions, it is difficult to say. I really liked what Marshal Lepuk said at our last session. We can make any kind of predictions, but it is unlikely that we are ever going to have that. And we should, maybe next year, have not money and people, but people and money. And Sergey said people and money. I said no, it's money and people. And so this is actually very correct word order. It should be humans and money. And maybe in 10 years' time, I think that we should be talking about some humanitarian values. First and foremost, we cannot avoid that. And we will see what will come next. I want to ask, does anybody else want to share their takeaways and their impressions of this winter school? Maybe you have some suggestions? My name is Artyom Levin. This is my first winter school, and it so happens that I saw this advertisement in social networks, and I'm really impressed. I came here especially from Moscow to speak here. I want to thank everybody, saying that this organization is great. I did download that application and saw the agenda there. You are one of the 30 people who did it. So I just want to say thank you to the organizers. Please get going and develop it.